For the last few years, trying to understand the residential real estate market has felt a lot like, I mean, honestly, like showing up to a chaotic Black Friday sample sale.
Oh, totally. People literally sprinting down the aisles.
Right. You walk in the doors, elbows are flying, and you're just grabbing whatever you can blindly throw into your cart.
Just zero hesitation.
Yeah, exactly. If you stop to, like, read a price tag or check if a shirt actually fits, it is just gone. Someone snatches it right out of your hands.
And that really was the defining characteristic of the pandemic-era housing frenzy, right? It was entirely reactionary.
Hmm.
I mean, buyers were waiving inspections, ignoring massive structural flaws, and bidding, tens of thousands over, asking just to secure a roof over their heads.
But if you step into the market right now, and we are looking at the landscape of mid-May 2026, that chaotic sample sale is officially over.
Thank goodness.
Right. It feels like someone just flipped a switch. Suddenly, we're standing in a well-organized, high-end department store.
The racks are neat, the lighting is calm.
Exactly. And most importantly, you actually have time to take a couple of things into the fitting room and see how they look. So, welcome to our deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're taking a massive stack of recent data to really cut through the noise of conflicting real estate headlines. Our sources today are pretty extensive. We've got reports from the San Antonio Board of Realtors, Redfin, Zillow, some local broker insights, and regional economic forecasts.
And the overarching theme that's emerging across all of these sources, what economists are broadly categorizing it as, is the Great Housing Reset.
The Great Housing Reset. Now, our mission today isn't just to throw macroeconomic terms or, a bunch of percentages at you.
Right, nobody wants that.
No.
Yeah.
The goal of this deep dive is to decode what this reset actually means for your wallet. Are we crashing? Are we booming? We are going to figure out exactly where the leverage lies right now in the San Antonio area.
And really understand the underlying mechanics driving these shifts. Because to figure out where prices are going, we first have to look at the sheer volume of what is sitting on the shelves.
So let's start with that primary shift, which is inventory.
Right. So supply and demand is obviously the foundational metric of any market. And right now, all the sources point to a very clear, very established transition into a balanced to buyer-leaning environment.
Okay.
I mean, the single biggest story of 2026 in San Antonio real estate is this buildup of inventory. We are currently sitting at about 5.5 to 6 months of supply.
Let's actually break down the mechanics of that metric, because I think people hear months of supply and get confused. It's basically an absorption rate.
Exactly, yeah.
Like if you take the total number of active listings on the market and divide it by the number of homes selling each month, you get that timeline.
That's spot on.
So if no new homes came onto the market starting today, it would take roughly 5.5 to 6 months for the current pool of buyers to absorb every single listed home.
Which is huge, because historically, a balanced market where neither the buyer nor the seller has a distinct upper hand in negotiations, that sits right at that 4 to 6 month mark.
So we're right at the upper threshold of balance.
Exactly, maybe even tilting slightly toward the buyer. And the data shows that active listings are up 15 to 18% year over year.
Wow. Okay. So what does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, it means on any given day, there are roughly 6,000 to maybe 7,000 plus homes available across the metro area.
That's a ton of options.
It is, and because of all that inventory, the days on market, or DOM, has climbed significantly. We're looking at an average of 90 to 100 plus days.
Right. Really?
Yeah, that is up roughly 20% from last year.
So houses are sitting around for 3 whole months.
Sometimes more, yeah.
Well, this is where I want to challenge the natural assumption a lot of people make when they hear that kind of data. Because if inventory is piling up to 7,000 homes and a house languishes on the market for an entire season before selling, the instinct is to assume, well, the market is collapsing.
Right, the sky is falling.
Exactly. Why aren't prices absolutely cratering under the weight of that much inventory?
Because you really have to look at the other side of the equation, which is the actual sales volume. While the homes are taking longer to sell, the total volume of transactions hasn't plummeted. The buyer demand is still actively moving through the system.
So it sounds a bit like widening a freeway.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like the same number of cars, which are the buyers, are still making the commute and passing through the toll booth at the end.
Right.
But because the freeway went from, 2 lanes to 5 lanes and the speed limit dropped, it feels a lot less congested. The cars are just taking longer to get to the destination.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The transaction volume is still flowing. I mean, if you look at the San Antonio Board of Realtors data for April 2026, there were over 3,000 closings, 3,135 to be exact.
And how does that compare to last year?
It's actually up 2% year over year.
Oh, wow. So volume is actually up.
Yeah. One weekly report in early May even showed nearly 500 closings in just 7 days. So the buyer demand hasn't evaporated. It's the panic that has evaporated.
The panic is gone.
Exactly. The whole take it or leave it era is completely over. Buyers are utilizing that wider freeway to take their time, do their due diligence, schedule comprehensive inspections, and actually negotiate terms.
Which, is a much healthier environment for anyone making a 30-year financial commitment.
Oh, absolutely.
But this brings us to a really confusing part of our sources. We've established that homes are sitting longer, which would normally make you expect a fire sale on prices.
You'd think so, yeah.
Yet, when we look at the actual price tags, the data from our sources is surprisingly contradictory. So, the San Antonio Board of Realtors, SABR, they show an April 2026 median price of $307,000.
Great, and they note that is basically flat year over year.
Flat, okay. And they also show an average price of almost $370,000.
But then you cross-reference that with the major national data aggregators, and you get a completely different picture.
Totally different.
Yeah, Redfin shows a median closer to 260,000, which they note was down 3.3% in March.
In Zillow,
Puts the average home value at roughly 251,000, down about 2.4%.
okay, listen. If you are sitting at your kitchen table right now trying to figure out your family's budget, a $40,000 to $50,000 gap in median price reports is incredibly frustrating.
It's maddening.
That isn't a rounding error. What is breaking down in the methodology to cause a discrepancy that large among major data providers?
Well, it really comes down to what exactly is being measured, the geographic boundaries, and this concept called closing composition.
Okay, break that down for us.
So SABOR is pulling its data directly from the local multiple listing service, the MLS. That encompasses a very specific, defined geographic footprint of the San Antonio metro area, and it only tracks transactions recorded by member agents. But platforms like Zillow or Redfin, they use proprietary algorithms that scrape public records. So their algorithms might include different outlying rural counties where prices are, significantly lower, or they might process the data from massive new construction subdivisions differently if the builders are recording those sales in bulk.
I see. Let's expand on that closing composition concept, because I think that's key. It sounds a bit like trying to calculate the average weight of a cart of groceries.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Like if you happen to buy 3 massive watermelons on a Tuesday, the average weight of your cart skyrockets for that specific week.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't mean the actual price, or in this case, weight of apples went up. It just means the composition of the cart was skewed heavy that day.
That is the core of the methodology issue right there. Weekly fluctuations can be wildly skewed. I mean, if a cluster of high-end million-dollar homes in a luxury neighborhood happens to close in a single week, the average price for that specific week will artificially spike.
Makes sense.
And then if a massive batch of entry-level starter homes closes the next week, the average plummets. So when you strip away that weekly volatility and you account for the algorithm differences and really look at the broader, sustained metro medians,
Where do they actually land?
prices are landing steadily between 290,000 and 320,000.
Okay, that feels much more realistic. And the price per square foot seems to be holding firm, too. Between, what, 153 and 177?
Yeah, right in that pocket. But honestly, the metric that really highlights the leverage in this market is the sale-to-list ratio.
Which tells us how much sellers are actually getting compared to what they asked for.
Exactly. The data indicates sellers are still getting 93 to 98% of their list price when they price it correctly.
Ah, that's the caveat.
Right, because a full 25% of listings, so 1 in 4, are seeing price reductions before they secure a buyer.
Wow. So that means 25% of sellers are aiming way too high right out of the gate. They're probably looking at outdated, comparable sales from the pandemic and having to just swallow their pride to get a buyer's attention. I mean, the market is actively enforcing discipline.
It really is. It is punishing overpricing very, very quickly.
So prices are stabilizing rather than crashing, and sales volume is actually up 2%. But we have to address the macroeconomic elephant in the room here, which is mortgage rates.
Yeah, We definitely do.
Borrowing money is really expensive right now. Rates are hovering in this painful low to mid 6% range. So what is the invisible safety net keeping the San Antonio market afloat while borrowing costs are this high? I mean, why aren't we seeing the volatile swings or massive depreciations that hit national tech hub markets?
Well, San Antonio operates on incredibly sturdy, diversified economic anchors. It does not rely on a single volatile industry like, say, speculative tech.
Right.
First and foremost is the massive military presence. Joint Base San Antonio JBSA creates a constant, reliable churn of relocation.
Let's actually look at the mechanism of how that military presence insulates the market. Because it's not just that people are moving, it is how their housing is funded.
Exactly.
The military provides a basic allowance for housing, or BAH, and this is a guaranteed, non-taxable monthly stipend tied directly to a service member's rank and the local rental market rates.
It's massive.
Right. When thousands of families arrive with a guaranteed government-backed monthly budget specifically earmarked for housing, it literally builds a price floor into the local rental and starter home market. It's essentially a recession-proof economic engine.
And the sources cite that military foundation as a primary stabilizing force. I mean, when you combine that guaranteed housing stipend with the sheer volume of personnel transferring in and out every single year, you have a baseline of transaction activity that occurs regardless of whether mortgage rates are at 4% or 7%.
People still have to move.
Exactly. And beyond the military, the metro area relies on a massive healthcare sector, a thriving tourism industry, and robust, steady manufacturing.
So it's a market built on slow, steady fundamentals.
Very much so.
Another massive factor highlighted in the economic forecasts is the cost of living. San Antonio sits roughly 9% below the national average.
Yeah, and its median home price is well below the national average and significantly cheaper than its major Texas peers, like Austin or Dallas.
For sure.
That affordability metric is a massive competitive advantage for the region. It acts as a magnet for corporate relocations and in-migration.
Now, one specific statistic in the report stood out drastically to me, especially if you were tuning in from Los Angeles, New York, or Seattle.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're going to say.
It's wild, right? The sources note that in San Antonio, entry-level luxury is highly accessible, sitting at a benchmark of around $750,000.
Yep.
I mean, in many coastal markets, $750,000 might secure a one-bedroom condo that needs a total renovation. But here, it is buying entry into the luxury tier.
It's crazy when you compare it nationally. And the regional forecasts reflect the strength of that affordability. Statewide, Texas forecasts project a modest 1.3% median price increase for 2026.
Okay.
But the local data suggests San Antonio could outperform that, seeing anywhere from 1 to 4% growth.
4%.
Yeah, but the caveat to that growth is interest rates. That 4% projection is highly dependent on rates easing slightly toward the 5.9 to 6.3% range later in the year. If rates stay elevated, the market likely stays flat.
Okay, so understanding all this macroeconomic data is great for cocktail parties, but how do you actually use this information to your advantage this week? Let's take all these overarching themes, the rising inventory, the price discipline, the steady economic anchors, and translate them into a playbook. Let's start with buyers.
Perfect. So if you are entering the market as a buyer in mid-May 2026, that 5.5 to 6 months of supply is your greatest asset. It provides leverage. The strategic shift here is moving away from purely negotiating the sticker price of the home and focusing entirely on the total cost of the transaction.
Meaning the price of the home plus the interest rate plus the closing costs.
Exactly.
Because of that inventory buildup we discussed, sellers are motivated. And the data indicates buyers are successfully and aggressively negotiating for 3 to 6% in seller concessions.
Which is huge.
Right. And the smartest application of those concessions isn't necessarily knocking a few $1,000s off the purchase price. It's using that money to buy down the mortgage rate.
Yeah, let's actually look at the mechanics of a rate buy down because a lot of people don't get it. You aren't just magically getting a lower rate from the bank.
Right.
You are paying a lump sum up front using the seller's concession money to basically buy points from the lender. Each point typically costs 1% of the total loan amount, and it permanently lowers the interest rate by a fraction of a percentage.
The math on this is incredibly compelling. Like, let's say you negotiate a $10,000 concession from the seller on a $300,000 home.
Okay, standard scenario.
If you just take that $10,000 off the purchase price, your monthly mortgage payment might only drop by like $50 or $60.
Right, hardly noticeable.
Yeah. But if you take that exact same $10,000 and use it to permanently buy down your interest rate from, say, 6.5% to 5.5%, you are dropping your monthly payment by over $200. You are saving tens of thousands of dollars in interest over the life of the loan.
And the sources note this strategy is particularly prevalent with VA loans near the JBSA bases. I mean, military buyers are maximizing those seller credits to cover all closing costs and execute rate buydowns, making the monthly payments highly affordable even in a mid-6% rate environment.
Now, because buyers are coming to the table expecting these rate buydowns and concessions, it creates a domino effect for anyone trying to sell a house right now.
Absolutely.
The playbook for sellers has completely changed. We noted earlier that 1 in 4 listings are seeing price reductions.
Yeah, because the stigma of a stagnant listing is very real. When buyers have 7,000 homes to choose from, a property that sits on the market for 45 days without an offer immediately raises red flags.
People wonder what's wrong with it.
Exactly. Buyers assume something is wrong or that the seller is just unreasonable. So sellers must neutralize that risk by pre-inspecting the home, fixing minor issues before listing, and professionally staging the property.
Makes sense.
And most importantly, sellers have to build a concessions budget into their financial math from day one.
Well, the biggest challenge for sellers right now seems to be the competition from new construction.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like, if I am selling a home built in 1995, it might have great bones and mature trees, but it is not brand new. The national builders out in the periphery suburbs, places like Cibolo, Schertz, or Converse, they are functioning like corporate machinery. They are throwing massive incentives at buyers. Free upgrades, in-house financing with huge rate buydowns, comprehensive warranties. So how does an individual seller compete with a corporation offering a 5.5% promo rate?
Well, the strategy is to neutralize the builder's financial advantage by matching the incentives. I mean, an individual seller obviously can't manufacture a new build warranty.
No, of course not.
But they can work with their agent to perfectly price the home to the comparable properties in their specific established neighborhood. And then the seller heavily markets their willingness to offer those exact same rate buydowns or seller credits.
So you level the playing field on the financing side.
Exactly.
A buyer might vastly prefer the character and location of an established neighborhood, but they are being lured away by the math of the builder's promotional interest rate. But if the seller provides a concession that allows the buyer to buy down the rate on the established home, the buyer gets the neighborhood they want at the monthly payment they need.
And I should add, professional marketing is also no longer optional for resale homes. High-quality photos, virtual tours, aggressive digital marketing, these are baseline requirements now if you want to compete with builder model homes.
Because both buyers and sellers are hyper-focused on this dynamic of concessions and rate buydowns, it completely changes the math for the third pillar of the market, investors.
It really does.
Because San Antonio has historically been a massive hotspot for real estate investment.
Yeah, during the pandemic, investors were banking on pure, rapid appreciation. The strategy was to buy a property, rent it out to cover the basic costs, and just watch the asset value soar 15% in a single year.
Which was happening.
It was. But that era is definitively over. With appreciation forecasted at a modest 1 to 4%, the focus must shift entirely to cash flow. The property has to generate a tangible monthly profit.
Which ties right back into the military presence we talked about. The sources advise leaning into the strong military rental market because that basic allowance for housing provides a steady, reliable stream of renters with guaranteed stipends.
But the data does issue a warning for investors, though. Rentals are actually softening in some specific suburban spots due to oversupply.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so investors have to be highly selective, analyzing the actual yield and projected occupancy rates rather than banking on the home's intrinsic value just skyrocketing.
So if we pull all these threads together, the key takeaway of this deep dive is that the San Antonio residential real estate market in mid-May 2026 is a fundamentally healthy, balanced environment.
Yes.
The frantic bidding wars and the blind panic of the pandemic years, they've been replaced by a highly strategic, methodical market.
It really is an environment that heavily rewards preparation and discipline over sheer timing.
Yeah, whether you are prepping for a military relocation to JBSA, or analyzing the market for your first home, or just studying the economic winds blowing through Texas, the strategy requires looking at the full equation.
Absolutely.
The leverage doesn't lie solely in the price tag anymore. The leverage is found in the combination of price plus interest rates plus concessions.
Before we wrap up, the source material highlighted one specific forward-looking risk that I think is crucial to consider.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
We touched on the massive new construction zones out on the periphery of the city.
Right.
Well, if those builders construct inventory faster than the buyer pool can absorb it, they will be forced to aggressively slash prices to move those units off their balance sheets.
Which, provides a great short-term opportunity for a buyer looking out in the suburbs.
It does. But consider the macroeconomic ripple effect. If the outer ring of the suburbs becomes flooded with discounted new inventory, how does that impact the broader metro valuation? For decades, the premium value has continually pushed outward into the suburbs as people sought more space. But if those suburbs face stagnation due to structural oversupply, we could see a complete reversal.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, the scarcity of established urban core properties closer to the city center could suddenly drive a massive premium. It could fundamentally reshape where the generational wealth in San Antonio real estate is built over the next decade.
A complete reversal of where the premium value lies in the city. That is definitely something to chew on as you watch the market navigate this great housing reset. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.